Now, let's be real for a moment. Can you do anything else besides to trust life? Well, we could say you could try to control every single aspect of your life, but where does that lead you? Have you tried that? And how did it work out? Have you really tried to control your life entirely, believing that you're 100% responsible for how your life turns out to be? That's a very heavy burden to carry. To believe that your life is somehow a responsibility of the ego persona that we believe we are. Because what you realize is when you observe life carefully that you are not really in control of how your life turns out to be. It doesn't matter what society tells you about personal responsibility, about how it's important to choose how you respond to situations, and so on. But even that, the response you have when it comes to some situation in your life is also not in your control. You just respond in the best way you think it's possible, and then later in life you may realize that that was not the best response. But how much control did you have over that response when you're always dealing with situations with the knowledge and the wisdom that you have right here, right now? And where does that knowledge and wisdom come from? You could read all the books in the world and never have true wisdom. You may be able to speak in a way that seems wise. You may be able to convince yourself and other people that you have wisdom, but true, real wisdom has nothing to do with knowledge. There are two different things. So you see how you're not really in control of what you have within you. And what you have within you is what determines how your life plays out. And you may try to control that by trying to mold yourself into some image that you deem reasonable and effective to deal with life, but still you can't really control that. And you cannot also control what happens to you in your everyday life. Things just seem to happen. There is this unfolding of situations that you can't really control. The best you can do is actually to trust that the same intelligence that makes your heart beat, the same intelligence that makes every process within your body to function properly, and also in your psyche, everything in your heart, and also that same intelligence that is responsible for creating this vast universe that we live in. Because the mountains and the waters, the seas, and everything in this world, basically also human beings, there is great intelligence behind that. You cannot deny that. There is something that created that, and it's very intelligent. Because when you look also into sacred geometry, you see that within everything in this universe there is sacred geometry there, and people have found that out. So you see, there is great intelligence behind this life, and that same intelligence is what's within you. Because there is nothing outside of that intelligence. And that's not some new age belief. If you really look closely, you see that what's making your heart beat, it's what's making the stars shine and all other things in this universe. It's the same essence, it's the same living energy within all things. So if that great intelligence is what makes your heart beat, what makes your mind think, what creates or manifests, I don't like the word manifests, but what produces the unfolding of your life, don't you think that that same intelligence is taking care of itself, basically, which is you? You see, worry and fear, they're just traps, we could call them. They're diseases of the mind that there is a purpose behind them, that's true. Uh, but they're not something that you should give your attention to and energy to, because you could try to worry about things in life. But if you are being 100% honest with yourself, the situation that you're in right now, whatever your living situation is right now, how did you end up there? Let's say it's a situation you like. You like living your living situation, which most people don't like it because the mind is never satisfied. But still, let's say you don't like the living situation. For example, how did you end up being here? Was it by your own choice? Or did you try to always make the right decisions and still you ended up in a situation that there was no way you could have predicted? On the other side too, if you like your living situation, let's say you have created your living situation, you've worked hard for it, at least that's what you believe, and you could say, well, I I worked hard for this and I have it. I made it happen. Well, what's that thing within you that made you make all the effort? Why would you believe that there are no other people who make the same, even if not more effort, to have something, let's say, but they just don't get it? And then you, not you, society blames them, points fingers at them, saying, oh, this person, they're not working hard enough. But look around, there are many, many hardworking people, there are many, many smart people who are in situations that they don't deem perfect. Why is that? See, that's the old good question of why do good people suffer? There is, again, only one answer to this, which you can't really have a full answer of that. You could say, you could try to explain these things with past lives and subconscious tendencies that seem to run your life. Yeah, that's true. But why is that specific person acting in such a way or has this character, and then another person has a completely different character and acts in a completely different way? Is it something they chose? Is it something that you as a baby choose? Okay, this is how I want to be. I want to have this kind of character. I want to be acting in this way, and I will avoid these things. Is that a choice you make? You don't make that choice, at least not on a human conscious level. So you see how everything is kind of predetermined, everything is kind of already set up. And I would go even further to say that we are not here on this earth to learn anything. That's the play of the game. It's to learn things, but that's not the ultimate truth, what I would say. Yes, the game of evolution and growth continues because that's the game of life, and we participate in that, and that's what it seems to be. It seems to be like we are growing, we're learning from our mistakes, we're being responsible, we're taking care of things, right? That's the game. But what's beneath it is actually that we are here to just experience life. You see, it doesn't matter how much you grow, there is always more growth to accomplish. There is always more to aspire to. There is not a single person who walked this planet and said, I've learned everything. And if they said it, that's not true. You can't learn everything in this life. As they say, you learn your entire life and you still die uneducated. I don't know if you have ever heard that quote. It comes from my country. Uh, however, um, what's the point of you trying to do everything in this life? Have you asked this question? Like, why are you doing everything you're doing? Why are you getting up, going to work? We could say it's for survival, you need to survive. But why do you need to survive? Because there is something within you that wants to experience this life. And that thing, we could call it, is that divine spark within you that people talk about in the spiritual circles. Because they say that the divine is living within you. There is a divine spark within you. And I would go even further and say that it's not only a spark, but everything about you is divine. Everything about this life is divine, even though there may be a seeming play of opposites here, like good and evil, positive force, negative force. That's the play. But all the positive and all the negative actually stems from one single place, which is the source of all creation, is also essentially what you are. So you can't really separate yourself from that great intelligence that's everywhere all the time. That is everything. So why would you fear anything? Why would you worry about anything? You see, life could be much more peaceful experience if we were just able to truly let go and trust. But you can't really seem to do that by making a choice. Like, now I choose to let go and trust. Try it. If you can't let go and trust, can you make yourself do that? You can't. You see, so once we dissect everything in this way, you see that you literally have no control over anything. At least not you as the ego, we could say it. You as the divine essence of what you are, this is what has control. But you as this ego, believing that you're this person and you have a responsibility to make something out of your life, that will only leave you exhausted because you're basically chasing something that's not real. You you're chasing a sense of control for the ego that it cannot be attained. And that's how this life is programmed in its essence. It's that it's designed in such a way that you try to get control in this life, and you eventually come to a point where you realize that it doesn't matter what you try to control. There are things outside of your control all the time, which play a huge factor in how your life unfolds. See, people tell you circumstances are not important, the background you come from is not important to how your life unfolds, but it is actually important, because these are all different variables to how your life will play out eventually. And you're not really in control of these variables, not you as the ego, as the persona that you're playing in this life. There is something much greater than this persona that it's taking care of everything all the time. So you see, what I'm getting at is that it doesn't matter how hard you try to control things in life, you just end up exhausted, and you eventually realize that the more you try to control, the more you actually suffer. And the more you let go, trust, and become more spontaneous in your life, actually not be so obsessed with wanting life to unfold in a certain way, wanting certain things to happen the way you want them to happen. You actually let go of that to the best of your ability. We are not perfect, of course. Um, the more you can do that and you become more spontaneous and you just move with whatever life presents you, the more you feel like you're riding a wave. And that is how life is meant to be lived by those who understand this. And before you are learning about philosophy, psychology, spirituality, when you were a kid, you were riding the waves of life. You were in that spontaneous state where you just moved with everything and you didn't resist anything. But what happened then? Then you started believing in the illusion of responsibility, in the illusion of thinking that you are responsible for what happens in your life. And because of that, you started resisting reality itself. And now you're struggling. Now you're suffering through your experience because you forgot, or you started believing that reality or life is something that needs to be controlled. And that's very far from the truth. The more you let go and just surrender to what reality is right now, the more you come back to that state of being a child again, childlike state of being. And that again makes life worth experiencing. And these are stages. Again, when you were a child, you were not conditioned yet. You are not conditioned by society that it's you who is responsible for what happens in your life. You are to blame, not life. What does life have to do with you? Well, everything. I am in life, life is in me, and we're connected. So you cannot say that this persona is responsible for everything in life. And you think your life is your life, but that's not the truth. Your life is a divine expression of the unbound source of everything, the infinite source of everything, that its essence is infinite. So and it chooses to express itself in different forms. This is why we have different living beings on our planet, different animals, different insects, different human beings, different everything is, in essence, it's all the same. There is that life within everything. The essence is the same, but the expression is different. So once you realize this, what happens is that you start deconditioning your mind. You actually start being like a child again. And that now life feels worth living again. And this is not something, again, you can make yourself become. This is an evolution of this persona that you are in this life. This persona needs to go through certain things, experience certain things, realize certain things, and then return to its essence and start operating from there again. It's not that it stopped operating from its essence. It's always operating from its essence because there is nothing else to operate from. You could say you could operate from ego, but again, ego in its essence is still from the source. So everything is this has the same essence. So even the ego that we're trying to dissolve, the ego is the enemy, and all of these things, it's not really true. It's not true because the divine spark within you is as valuable as your ego. They're equal because they are one and the same. There is no separation between things. Everything is coming from one single energetic source. And what you want to align yourself with more as you're moving on this path of truth and self-discovery is that you want to allow yourself to be spontaneous and stop blaming yourself for everything. You think you're a project that you need to fix. Not you specifically, but many people believe there are projects that they need to fix. There are self-improvement projects. Well, that's not true. You're not a project. You're the divine experiencing this human life. That's what you are. And the entire point of everything is just experience. Because let's say you mold yourself somehow, which you cannot do unless it's divine's will for that to happen. Let's say you mold yourself into the perfect human being. Let's say you've gained everything you ever wanted. All your desires have been fulfilled, and you have everything you ever wanted. Now, there will come a moment where you leave the body, where you die. What was the point of all of that? It's experience, you see? So there is infinite ways to experience this reality. And just because one experience looks in a certain way and society has put that on a pedestal, doesn't mean that that is the one and only experience of life, that it's the most important. Let's say to fulfill your desires, become rich, become successful. That's not the only important thing to this reality. You see, every experience is as important as the other one. Because source is infinite, it will express itself in infinite experiences. You just happen to be that particular kind of experience. So, what is it that you truly have control over? On a human aspect, nothing, I would say. You are who you are, not because of you, but because of life, but because of what's inside of you, because of your psyche, because of your how you perceive situations, because of how your perspective is, what you do. But you don't really choose all of this. You didn't choose it, at least not this persona didn't choose that. On a deeper level, you have chosen to express yourself in very in a variety of different ways. But for this life, this is the expression you have. Sorry. So find a way to make peace with that. Find a way to embrace that, to embrace your nature of who you are. Stop fighting your nature. Be who you are. Be who the divine chose to express itself through. Be that vessel, and harness that expression and use it. You cannot not use it. You will always use it because there is nothing besides that. But what I mean here is make peace with your nature. Make peace with who you are. Don't turn yourself into a project that you need to fix constantly and always readjust things. Like, oh, there is something wrong with my character. Oh, these thoughts, I don't really want to have them. That's mad. That's madness, I'm telling you. How do I know? Because almost every single person struggles with that, including myself. I'm not here perfect trying to portray an image. I'm just someone who shares common things as you, common experiences. And this is what I've realized. This is what I've experienced in my life. So I realized that it doesn't matter how big the self-improvement project of myself, you know what I mean, is, doesn't go anywhere. There is always things to improve, things to refine, because everything is so subtle. Your psyche and everything, that's very complex thing. Have you realized how complex the psyche is? And that's only the psyche. What about the emotions? What about your soul? What about everything else in this reality? There is so much complexity in that. And it's that same source of energy, that same divinity, which we're using the word divinity or God or the universe just to point at something. It's not really divinity, it's not really source, it's reality. It's everything that is. This is what we're trying to point to. That same thing, which is no thing, is taking care of itself all the time. And since you are that, you're taking care of yourself. So why wouldn't you trust yourself? And again, I don't promise anything. I'm not saying that by you realizing this, all your desires will be met and everything you ever wanted will be achieved. That's not a promise I make, and I can never make that promise because it's not up to me, not to this persona. Doesn't matter what you learn, doesn't matter how much you read. Your destiny is your destiny. Your expression is your expression, and it will keep expressing throughout your entire life, and there is nothing you can do about that. The best thing you can do is to ride the waves of life, to be spontaneous, to not be in your head when you don't want to. If you want to think about something and you enjoy the process of contemplation, then do that. But if you don't want to, then get out of your head and just be spontaneous. Do whatever you want to do. And you see that this existence can't really be figured out. This existence is something very special, something very mystical that even the greatest avatars and mystics didn't have all the answers, because you cannot have all the answers. The more you learn about the truth of this existence, the more questions you have. The more answers you find, the more questions you have. It, questions never end. They just become different questions. So you never really know what's going on. And everything I've talked about, I sense truth here. Truth is being spoken. I can sense that. But again, how can you prove all of this? You are the only proof that it exists. This reality is the only proof. If that's not enough, then I don't know what is. This entire reality and life, and you being able to understand what I'm saying, and your psyche functioning and everything, that isn't that very like, it's magnificent, it's amazing how complex this thing is called life. So the best thing you can do again is just let yourself go and be spontaneous and move and do the best you can to enjoy this life. And there will be stages where you don't enjoy it, and that's cool. That's cool. You cannot always enjoy life, but you can at least, on the level of the game, which is growth and evolution, you can try to do your best to realize, and that happens whenever it needs to happen. You don't even really need to try, but just be aware that there is a possibility that you could live this life true without any fear, without any worry. Not that you never experience them, because you have emotions, but there will not be your permanent state of being. There will be not something you're defining yourself by. Instead, you're just here. You wake up. If you have something to do, you do it. You have to go to work, you work, and then you do whatever you have to do, and you just keep expressing who you are on a daily basis. And there is nothing else you can do. So everything is literally being played out by a greater force, which is who you are also all of the time. And the only thing you can do is just embrace the experience, just accept the reality, accept everything, and just move with it. Offer no resistance. And if you're resisting, be patient with that process, because it will come to a point where resistance causes you so much suffering that you have no other choice than to let go. And once you let go and you move spontaneously through life, then we could say you have found the secret of life, which life doesn't have one secret. Life has many secrets hidden in plain sight. That's the trick. Everything you ever want to know about reality is right here. But can you see it? Do you have the perspective and the needed vision to be able to see that? That's the question. And that is the evolution of consciousness. That is the game of this life, is to be able to see what's here, to truly see it for what it is, which is this magnificent existence that has everything in it. And you just become not inspired, but you're in awe of everything. And that makes you humble, that makes you joyful, that makes you excited, that makes you bored, that makes you sad, that makes you happy. It makes you everything at the same time, because all of these things, they are here all of the time. So yeah, we went really deep on this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And I will see you in the next video. I wish you a wonderful day and existence. See you next time. Bye bye.